Hello, good evening. I am Tosin Akande and I am a Masters of Public Health student at Oklahoma State University. And this evening I will be talking about the influence of local food sources near schools on adolescents' dietary intake. I'll basically be focusing on the relationship between the neighborhood food environment and food consumption of adolescents. I also discussed the need assessment factors and the Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, as well as the implementation of my findings. So, according to the CDC, most teenagers in the United States do not meet the required amounts of the daily consumption of fruit, vegetables, and whole grains, and most of them consume more than the required amount of salt per day. However, they're not to blame to an extent because, for the fact that there are teenagers and most of them are not adult yet, so they're not totally in control of their dietary intake. And also the fact that I'll have to consider the fact that dietary intakes of adolescents reflects the social cultural trends in food availability and nutritional goals. And to have effective or nutritional goals that make sense has to do with one's knowledge of nutrition and social okay, for example, now social cultural trends can be set without the knowledge of nutrition, but nutritional goals cannot. So knowledge is very, very important. And then eating healthy has several health benefits, such as the prevention of some types of cancer, high blood pressure, dental issues, and so on. So we'll be talking about the Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, and I'm sure we're all familiar with this from class. The first level talks about one's personal attitude, beliefs, and self-concept. So, but for the purpose of this presentation, I will consider the environment as both the community factor and the public policy factor. And the community factor is the physical environment, the restaurants around, the kind of I would say the kind of culture that permeates our behaviors sometimes. Is it the norm around us to eat healthy, or is it the norm to just eat whatever you can find? And then the public policy would have to do with the laws that guide us in eating healthy or not. Are there rules and regulations to how close the restaurant can be to a school, and what kind of restaurants can be around schools? And in fact, does the government benefit so much from these fast food restaurants that their hands are kind of tied? Go find out. So, for my presentation, I went to my high school, Dove Science Academy. It's in Oklahoma City, and I counted the number of fast food restaurants around just in the neighborhood and their proximity from the school. And since I was so close to Aztec High School as well, I did the same thing. I try not to look like a stalker too much, but I went around the school as well, just like drove around the school a couple times and count the number of fast food restaurants and healthy restaurants that are easily accessible to students, maybe after school. And I compared the influx of students of both types of restaurants. How many students go into the fast food restaurants? How many students go into the healthy restaurants? And why or why not? And then I also observed the types of neighborhood the schools are in. I mean, my high school is in a low socioeconomic neighborhood, so that has a lot to do with the restaurants that are available there as well. So here are my findings. This is for Dove Science Academy, and you can see it right here. I have the cursor over it, and there are about 9. This is 3. This is 2. There are about 9. Wait, okay, there are about 10 restaurants around the school, but about 6, I would say, that are very close to the school. And we often go there while I was a student there. We often go there after school. You can go to Burger King. I don't know why the churches is not showing up, but there's also churches that is very, very close. The churches that is very close. This is McDonald's. They go to the Some people go to McDonald's a lot. Arby's. I know Arby's was very close by, or at least not too far from the school. And then if you look over here, there is the University of Oklahoma. So I mean, let's think about it for a second. Imagine a student graduating from Dove Science Academy and went over to Oklahoma City University. There isn't that much of a difference in the environment. You're still exposed to the same types of food. You're still exposed to the same environment. So that's the purpose of this presentation, to help us understand the importance of teaching our young adults, or at least our youth, the importance of eating healthy before they head off to college, at least so then they'll be responsible for their own dietary intake. And now this is for Aztec. Aztec is right here, and unlike Dove Science Academy, I mean, I thought Dove Science Academy was bad, but Aztec is right here, and you can see, I mean, it's just a cluster of these restaurants around it. This is Arby's right here. You can see the Big Trust Tacos, the Drake, Banana Line, I don't know. But yeah, so now this brings us to the question of, do fast food restaurants cluster around high schools or just schools in general? I mean, is like having a school in a neighborhood magnetic? Does it attract restaurants? And if it does, what kinds of restaurants and why? All right. So, to answer the question from the previous slide, yes, schools do attract restaurants. I mean, even for the fact that they will have loyal customers. You know, for example, if a restaurant is by, let's say McDonald's is by a high school, at least for 4 years, you know you have influx of students. You know you have a stable pool of customers, I would say. And also, to look on the brighter side, having this kind of restaurants around schools provide options for students and workers. According to some studies, fast food restaurants can be healthier than school lunches, but that's a different scenario. That's a different scenario. But for me, while I was in school, then I mean, the school lunches I didn't really care for, and I would rather go out and eat at McDonald's than to eat at school. And also, having a school in a neighborhood sometimes is part of the gentrification of the district, and meaning like it's part of the authorities' effort to improve the schools district, to improve the school district, But why not with healthy food? Because you can also, well, I guess you could say fast foods have more money. That could be an excuse, but in the long run, healthy foods cost us less money. So another reason is that fast food restaurants around this kind of schools and neighborhoods attract more businesses and more investments in the neighborhood. I remember while in high school, then by the time I graduated, there were new businesses, there were new offices around, there were new shopping centers, so people could get different things done, you know, within a short period of time in less of the distance that they used to before. So looking to the right at the other map right here, Dove Science Academy, this is the healthy food when I took a screenshot of the healthy foods around Dove Science Academy. So this is Northwest 23rd, and so Dove Science Academy would be about right here. And look at how far the restaurants, I mean, these restaurants are pretty much in downtown. A lot of them are in downtown. And no high school student will leave school just to go all the way to would be able to leave school, go all the way to downtown pretty much, and then come back to school without being late for classes. And that wasn't even acceptable then. So now that we figure out the problem, which is a cluster of fast foods around schools, which is which is indirectly taking advantage of these kids, how can we tackle the problem? But we can't tackle the problem without first assessing our needs. So the first step in assessing the needs is exploring or discussing our predisposing factors, meaning what are the students' values, knowledge, attitudes, and knowledge of values about healthy food. What do they think of it? Is it gross? Is it expensive? Because while I was in college, that was a great issue. Eating healthy was expensive, and that was the reality of it. And then the second factor is enabling factors. What about the accessibility and availability of healthy food? And the previous slide here, for Dove Science Academy, the green foods were available, they just weren't accessible. And that defeats the purpose of it. Accessibility and availability goes together. So, and then lastly, we have to discuss the reinforcing factors, which is the family, the teachers, peers, people that can influence the kids' decision and behavior. So, while I was researching for my for this presentation, I found this data right here, but it's not very it doesn't really represent the population I'm targeting, but we can just look to the right over here where I have the cursor. I mean 18 to 25. 18 is like high school, senior year of high school, freshman year of college kind of age, but you can still see the percentage of obesity among this population in the United States. In Oklahoma rather. This is in Oklahoma. Oops. No. Okay. And then also focusing on the right part of the unhealthy dietary behaviors right here. Just like I mentioned earlier in the introduction, adolescents in Oklahoma are not consuming the amounts of fruits and vegetables they should be consuming. And although fast food restaurants say they're providing alternatives or providing options, and you can eat salad and fruits and vegetables, but why will I go to McDonald's and buy fruits and vegetables? I'd rather do that somewhere else. Most people go to McDonald's for fast food. That's pretty much it. They have good fries, and that's why a lot of students go there. And then vegetable consumption as well. We can see that almost 90%, let's just say 90% of youths in Oklahoma consume vegetables less than 3 times a day, and that's not good enough. And then sugar sweetened beverages as well. I know some schools are making the effort of eliminating soda vending machines from their school, and that is a huge step. That is part of the solution. I absolutely support that, but we still have a long way to go. Now, so what I'm able to learn from this, from my observation and research, is that students with lower social economical status are more at risk. Because if a student comes from a background with lower SES, they're more likely to go to school in that area. So that's like keeping them in that neighborhood almost their entire teenage life. And also among adolescents from lower socioeconomic background, the presence of fast food retailers near school is associated with accumulation of irregular eating habits. And of course, one of the downsides of unhealthy eating is weight gain. And this could be very, I would say, restricting to the kids. I mean, you can't be as active as you should be, and that's not something we want. Also, there is a growing consensus that district level policies and practices that influence the availability of healthier foods and beverages are needed. And I completely, totally agree with this. From the earlier readings from this class, I got to learn that public health is more political than it seems. Um, you need people in power, people that can change things, people that can implement laws and regulations to understand the 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 need for public health. And then I also suggest tighter restrictions on food marketing um, should be required across all types of media. I've been privileged to visit some other states outside of the United States, and one thing I notice is they don't advertise aggressively to kids as we do here. I mean, I'm talking about anything, everything, either drugs or food or anything. So we have to be careful on that. We ought to stop taking advantage of the feeble minds. Well, I don't want to say, for lack of a better word, not feeble minds, of the innocent mind of children, and just, and we have to hold fast food restaurants accountable, fast food companies accountable for what they're feeding our children. And also, so how do we implement all of this? How do we implement all of this? As I mentioned in the previous slide, policy is very, very, very important. Less aggressive marketing to children. That's going to help. So your kids will not be demanding McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's is already attractive enough for your kids to also be pressured to want to get it. And then we have to limit the distance of fast food outlets from schools. There has to be a law in place that maybe a fast food cannot be too close to a school. I don't know, however distance they want to put there, but also we should hold fast food companies accountable for what they put in the food, making them we should mandate it for them to communicate the food contents of what they're serving to us. Okay. And also, I would suggest we introduce convenient healthy foods or provide options. I know one of the things that throw people off about healthy food is that it's difficult, it's time consuming, and it can be true. I mean, yes. So this is an opportunity for us to figure out ways to introduce more convenient healthy foods that somebody can just leave work, come and grab something healthy for sure, and then go back to work or school. And then just like in high school, I mean, just like with some other courses like history and English and what else is there, and math, I think nutrition is one of the core foundations of a society. So I would really advocate that we start teaching nutrition from even elementary school, and how we should empower kids with the knowledge of what they eat, empower them to be able to go to the store and be able to differentiate or identify what's healthy and what's not healthy, and what they should be eating and what they shouldn't be. And here are my references. These are also the references I'll be using in my paper. These articles are very, very informative and very interesting and very in-depth. And for my images, Oh, the pictures I used in the slide. Here's where I got them all. And that's the end of it. Bye.